Welcome back to the Balance Sheet, where we talk about all things in the world of women's wrestling. I am one of your co-hosts, King Ajar,
What's up, guys? How you doing? It's Billy.
and we want to get right to it this week. We're a little bit of a condensed timeline here. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start at the top. One of the reasons we started this podcast is, we both became friends because of a certain wrestler, and that is Mercedes Monet,
Yep.
formerly known as Sasha Banks. And it just so happens that this is the 1 year anniversary of her uh, joining All Elite Wrestling on that big business show in Boston, Massachusetts. And, it's a time for us to kind of reflect on what it's been like for her 1 year outside of the WWE umbrella. Now, I understand she did have a year of activity in New Japan, but she also was injured for most of that year. So we really never got to see what that year materialized into. So we'll start before we get to our House of Glory review with her match last night with Indy Hartwell. What are your thoughts on 1 year of Monet in All Elite Wrestling?
Well, yeah, it's crazy that it's been a year already. And, on top of just the impact it's had, her impact, us just even being friends, um, we have this podcast because she signed with AEW and what that reaction was, um, the lack of maybe some understanding that was out there and what that meant for the business and how it was a great thing for women's wrestling. Um, and has been a great thing for women's wrestling. It's been pretty consistent right off the get. Before you even evaluate her performance, I think you have to say, well, has that impact materialized? And certainly, even though WWE keeps contracts closer to the vest now, we know Rhea, re-upped for a big number. Bailey re-upped for 5 years. Presumably got a good number. You know, WWE reacted to um, Mercedes signing by really kind of going out and getting more aggressive in women's wrestling free agency than they had been before, on people who weren't under their umbrella. Julia, Stephanie Vaquer, Jordan Grace. So I think the impact has absolutely materialized the way that we said. In ring and on TV, some people would say that it's been a little bit mixed in ring. I really wouldn't. I think it's been a slam dunk in ring. Um, People forget she was not even having pay-per-view matches for long periods of time in WWE. She didn't have any in 2018 singles in 2018, the front half of 2019. We've gone through that story before, but she's getting 15 to 20-minute matches on AEW pay-per-view pretty much every time. And when she doesn't, it's usually because her schedule, you know, doesn't fit. But and we've mostly gotten great matches, not just good matches, great matches. So there's a lot to reflect on in the year. We'll touch on it over the next as we talk through this, but the storytelling part has been lacking. Some of the weekly TV stuff has been lacking. Maybe finding her place in that universe. But if you look back at just the match catalog, she's 20-0 since she came back. That does include I think the NJPW and House of Glory stuff, but um, really just I think it's been a slam dunk in all ways. Uh, the things that need to get fixed have not been on her are not on her plate, and that's why we're out here to advocate for continued growth in women's wrestling because there's still some stuff in AEW that's just very frustrating as a women's wrestling fan. I like to think that's one of the reasons why she's there, but I could talk forever about it. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so let's start with where you began this conversation about contracts and finance and money, which is a very important piece of the Mercedes Monet story. She talks about money changes everything, and it really does. And here's why. She is, and I researched this, the first big money woman's free agent in the history of wrestling that changed companies. And that's not nothing to talk about. Like that alone is a landmark event that is in her resume, right? Like I can only equate her to Bret Hart. I know Bret
Hmm.
Hart's your favorite male wrestler of all time, maybe your
Yep.
favorite wrestler of all time.
No.
When Bret Hart left WWE to go to WCW for that amount of money, it really changed the industry from a standpoint of holy cow, like you can really go from here to here financially. Like Scott Hall and Nash went from, making good money to as they call sting money. Bret Hart was basically, besides Hulk Hogan and Steve Austin at that, not even Steve Austin not then because he didn't become Steve Austin, but other than Hulk Hogan, nobody else was making that kind of money. And then Bret Hart came along. There's Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch was here with women's salaries, and everybody else was here. Charlotte, Sasha Banks, Bailey, Alexa Bliss, they were all here. And Becky was just seen as here. Mercedes comes along, goes to AEW, goes here, and now you look at Rhea Ripley, you look at Becky Lynch, you look at Alexa Bliss, you look at Bailey, you look at Natty. You didn't even mention Natty,
Yeah.
right? I'm sure that Mariah May got more money in AEW because WWE was sniffing around on her. Okay, Stephanie Vacour. Stephanie Vacour, I could make a case, has been equally as big a signing for WWE as Mercedes has been for AEW. They have built an NXT TV show around Stephanie Vacour. I mean, if, we haven't even talked about NXT this week, but that told me Stephanie was the face of the company. That whole presentation for NXT, it told me Stephanie was the face of the company. And I know Julia and her on even terms. Julia's gotten, nicked up. So we'll see where they go. But both of those women, I think, come to NXT for the money they come to because of what Mercedes signs for. Because AEW now is a player, and
Hmm.
Mercedes going over there makes them a bigger player. And with her presentation and her salary and her kind of creative input with Jen Pepperman, I'm sure the Stephanies and the Julias and the Mariah Mays are like, oh, this could be a place. Look at what Mariah May has become. So I think her impact is huge on that sense. Now let's talk about in the ring. I think one of the most criminal things WWE ever did for Sasha Banks's booking is actually what you said, keeping her off shows. I don't even care if in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2021, 22, she lost most of those matches. But if she got 15 to 20 minutes on pay-per-view on a pay-per-view every month with Asuka, Charlotte, Becky, Bailey, Alexa, Naomi, Bianca, Rhea, Liv, I would say, okay, she just needed a change. She needed to go somewhere else because she needed different opponents. The whole Edge thing or the Jericho thing. But she didn't even get that chance in WWE. And I think that's the
Hmm.
most criminal thing about how they presented her. Because you cannot say they did not present her like a superstar. She was one of the faces of SmackDown when they went to Fox with Roman Reigns. She was in a Super Bowl commercial. She main evented WrestleMania. She main evented the first ever women pay-per-view, the women main evented. She did it on NXT. She had the most main events on Raw and SmackDown as a woman. So you can't say they didn't push her. What they didn't do is give her enough of a platform monthly to paint her picture and her canvas is the wrestling ring.
Hmm.
She wasn't in it. We talk about storylines with AEW. At least we know we're going to get a Mercedes Monet match once a month on pay-per-view in AEW.
Yep.
In WWE from 2015 to 2022, when I could argue on paper she was the biggest women's star they had for 5 of those 7 years. Like I can make a case 15, 16, it was her. 17 is Bliss, can't deny that. I would say 19 is Becky, 18, 19 is Becky, but then blue hair Mercedes comes back until you got to Bianca. So to me, if she was your biggest star and you hardly put her on pay-per-view for 2 years, that alone is misusing of her. Now, how has it
Hmm.
gone in AEW? It's not been perfect, if we're being honest. She's had great matches. I think the Willow match is great. I think the two Chris matches are fantastic. I think the Stephanie Vacour match, while it is an AEW match, but it's kind of seen as a hybrid AEW New Japan match. I mean, it really put Stephanie on the map and it's made her a big star. I would say in the ring, it's been super successful. I would give it a 9.5 out of a 10. I think the Brit is
Yep.
a miss, and I think Sheeta on that pay-per-view was a miss. But other than that, I think she's been out of the world phenomenal. Along with the New Japan stuff, along with the Rev Pro stuff, along with House of Glory, you're allowing Mercedes now to kind of canvas the world and have these great matches with different opponents and different promotions. And it's really kind of like seeing in the 1920s when Major League Baseball was in the off season, Babe Ruth would barnstorm. He would go to the Negro leagues. He would go to leagues in Arizona and just play. That's kind of what I look at Mercedes now. She could just go to these arenas and play and bring her presence to them. So for that, I think it's been a home run. Where I would say it's been a little bit of a miss is the week to week storytelling. We don't know what we get. We hardly get her promoted. She gets a 30-second backstage segment, and sometimes I wonder, is Tony protecting her because he doesn't feel like she's good enough to have 5-minute promo segments in the middle of the ring, which she certainly did have in WWE for all of the knocks people have about her promo skills. I thought some of the best stuff she did was in the pandemic era with Bailey in the middle of the ring, cutting a microphone with a microphone in her
Yep.
hand, cutting a promo. So long story short, I think it's been super successful. There has been a little bit of miss here and there, but I can't look at this as anything other than successful. And I know, before I give it back to you, there is the I've heard, and I'm not going to say who, but you know who I'm talking about. This very well-known Twitter account. It's run by a woman. Said, she's lost her aura. It's a downgrade. Um, I disagree. Just because she's not in the machine doesn't mean her work isn't as good. I would say it's better.
Yep.
So we have to open our eyes that if we're really wrestling fans, then we're wrestling fans of her no matter where she is. We're not WWE fans and we love the character of Sasha Banks, which personally, I think she's evolved and I think this is a better version of that character.
No, absolutely. And a couple things that you touched on. The mic work, she's good on the mic. She was good against Britt on the mic because Britt's good on the mic. That's where Britt's strong. And you know, she nailed her big business promo, but she had something to talk about. You know, should she be out there for 5, 10 minutes doing just a promo about how great she is all the time? No. I mean, most people in wrestling are not good at that. You have to give them a reason to be out there. Um, she will nail the mic work when the stories are there. Um, Someone did point out that I thought was a great point that I saw on Twitter, and I don't remember who said it first to give credit, but um, it took Tony Storm 18 months to find her footing wrestling or as a character in AEW. Um, and she had had a championship run too, and wasn't having great matches. Didn't really get over with the crowd either. Um, Mercedes is certainly over as a wrestler, and I think the character she's honing it in, um, in a way that the AEW crowd will learn to appreciate. I do think the AEW crowd is complicated. There just does seem to be some people who see her as a WWE machine type person and are resistant to her. I do think that's going to fade away though, because in the ring she is Michelangelo, um, wrestles for the love of the game. That House of Glory show last night was, you only do that at her stature because you love this shit, you know?
Mhm.
The Momo match, which we haven't covered, or we had covered. Um, no, we haven't. It was on Sunday
No, we
last
have
week.
we have we have not covered. No,
I
no.
mean, she gets kicked right in the face, and bruised jaw, bruised larynx, got a bruise visible on TV the next week, and kind of doesn't miss a beat. Right, it didn't slow the match down, um, and she goes on and has a really 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 good match with Momo. Was not an all time classic, but a really 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 good match. Um, and I think those sort of things are going to endear her. Let me go to House of Glory last night. You talk about WWE not using her on pay per view and that being the criminal thing. It really is, because when I say she's a Michelangelo in the ring, last night at House of Glory, she wrestles Indy Hartwell, who also was in the WWE universe for a long period of time that Mercedes was there. Yeah, she was in NXT and Mercedes was in the main roster, obviously, but this is someone who WWE could not get more out of, and she has a match with Mercedes, and it's the best match of her career. I don't think anyone will argue with you that that was the best match of Indy's career last night. And here's the funny thing about it: it was an indie show. They wrestled a pretty WWE match last night. They did. They wrestled a WWE style ish match last night. And what I mean by that is they did not do one spot that overly endangered either of them. If you watch the show, the ropes were a little loose, and you had some Mercedes fans going, "Hey, no top rope stuff," um, and they went out there and wrestled a very very good match. I saw some people throwing 4 stars out there. That's what I would have graded it. It wasn't just me. And they did so in a way that like WWE usually produces, in front of a hot indie crowd, that indie wrestling crowd that was filled with people from the crew who seemed overjoyed to see Mercedes. But um, yeah, the barnstorming thing is a great point, but it's also delivering kind of that joy for her fans, for wrestling fans. Um, and she didn't phone it in. They put together a 17-minute match that was really, really good and had some really thoughtful stuff, some Brooklyn callbacks. It,
Yeah.
Indy Hartwell only wrestles because of the Brooklyn match, is what she would say. Um, so the AEW stuff, alongside being able to do this other stuff that is her passion project, is it's been an unforgettable year. I think many fans will say it's been their favorite year of her career so far. And think about what a bold statement that is with all she's accomplished.
It's definitely my favorite year of hers, because the two Chris matches, the Willow match, the Stephanie match are great. But that Hazuki match, I would not get that match in WWE.
Right.
I just
Ever.
wouldn't. Number one, let's say there was a Hazuki, like let's say it was Julia. Okay. In WWE, Julia probably wins the match, right? Like if they were to let her and if they were to have that kind of match with that many false finishes, I feel like they would swap the title in WWE, which is
Right.
fine. But as a WWE Sasha Banks person, we've seen enough of her giving up the title, right? So we
Yeah.
we're okay with her being, you know, booked like Bianca, booked like Lesnar, because she's never been booked well in terms of the result of the match.
Right.
So two things. One, promo. I've wanted to long have a dialogue between you and I about her promo because it's a constant message board internet chatter, but I'll leave it at this. She's an effective promo.
Yep.
There's a difference between being there's a great promo. So CM Punk is a great promo. You know, you give CM Punk the microphone and he can talk about the brick wall and it'll probably be good. Roddy Piper is a great promo. I looked at Randy Savage as a great effective promo. I looked at Mercedes. I look at um like she's never gonna be Jake Roberts, but I look at her as an effective promo where if you just give her nothing to talk about, it'll probably be bad. I could say that as a fan of hers. Like it'll be, oh, what is she talking about? But if you give her a subject matter and a storyline that she could sink her teeth into, she could sell a match. I thought some of the best mic work she's ever done was against Bailey in the pandemic era. I thought she was phenomenal. I thought the stuff she did with Bianca leading up to SummerSlam was phenomenal. And I thought the stuff with Britt was great, except for the match. So I think
Right.
she's an effective promo. Now,
Yep.
back to what you're talking about in terms of uh her she doesn't mail it in. And that's another thing
Never.
that I don't think she gets any credit for, if at all. Like, that's hard. Like, she is a big star. She is not some just another name. You know, she has been at the forefront of the women's revolution in North America for professional wrestling. She's at the forefront of it, she's at the top of it. She goes to House of Glory. She gives you 17 minutes. She gives him Indy a lot. Indy got to look really, really good. Indy even got to put her foot on the rope from the moneymaker, which
Right.
wrestlers above Indy's stature do not. They lose to that move clean. Chris is the only one I think who's kicked out of it clean. So for me, that's something that all of her contemporaries can take note of and they should learn from her on. Is wrestling is about giving it to the new generation, about paying it forward. Why in 2025 nobody likes Hulk Hogan? It's not because everybody thinks it's all because of the racist comments. Yeah, of course that is like the cherry on the sundae. He's already a bad human being, but you give them that, it's like over. But that's why people love Bret Hart in 2025. That's why people love and revere Eddie Guerrero. That's why people love and revere Shawn Michaels, later Shawn Michaels, not,
Yeah.
pre-injury, back injury Shawn Michaels. That's why people love, say what you will about him. He's put a lot of people over. John Cena. He's put a lot
Yeah.
of people over.
Yeah. There are some, the Hulk Hogan thing is on tape. So that's one part of it. But that's so resilient because people can look back at his tape and realize he wasn't good either. The Undertaker's got some
Yeah.
bad stories out there about him and some views that don't match up with most fans. And he still, people still cheer the gong. Um, so that's a good point. The point you made about her never phoning it in is exactly why she's a good promo, though, to be honest, and why some people don't like her promo style. Mercedes is old school in that she is not going to run down her opponent and either degrade her win or make her loss look worse. You're selling the next match. You're always selling the next match. It's a Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, um, you know, and it's actually something Britt doesn't understand at all. And Britt hasn't been on TV since she said, "Who cares?" to Serena Deeb, right? Who cares? There's no place for who cares in wrestling.
No.
Um, cares. Everyone should care. You want them to care about you and your opponent. And Mercedes understands implicitly. Um, she's going to talk about how young of a champion Billy Starks was, has been. She put over Harley's determination before and after the match. Her first couple words out of her mouth about Momo were about how good Momo is and how she gave her a great match. Like, she's selling the match. She always is. She's not she's not going to just give you clickbait lines unless the story says so. And even still, everyone remembers. I mean, the biggest burn she ever threw out there was, "My name is bigger than your title," um,
Mhm.
and that was kind of like, you know, on that Bailey feud. But it was called for, and Bailey didn't need to be propped up at that point. She was champion for a year. You know what I mean? Like, she didn't need to be sold that she was a formidable opponent, and so the line works. But when you're in a 1 month promo with someone, she's trying to sell the match and keep you as a moneymaker after the match. So that's why she promos the way she does. That's why she sells the way she does in the ring. Um, that's why she's willing to give a 3 count, almost a 2.99 count to some people that others would not give any near falls to. And it's what makes her special. I mean, the Momo match was an extremely good piece of business on a card that was, I mean, I think there's 3 5-star matches on that card. You had
Thank you.
blood in several matches. You had Mariah Tony, who had the first ever 5-star um, women's match in North America,
Yeah.
and blood, and the culmination of a year long um, feud. Uh, and Mercedes could have just went and had a match, right? Like, she could have just, other people, a couple men on the card just went and had a match. And
And
Mercedes
including the
and
main event.
the main event, the main event had less than a match.
So,
I was thinking one of the other title holders that's a big free agent signing. Like, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't, they just had a match. But Mercedes always goes out there and does what she can to make herself and her opponent look great. Um, and she went out there and on a stacked card delivered a unique match um, in a difficult circumstance to do so.
and the one thing about her match with Momo is that Momo had a 0% chance of winning. So for
Zero.
the so for the fact that the match was still very good, very entertaining, like you said, unique from everything else. I mean, that was look, I am not the biggest AEW fan in terms of the totality of their promotion. I do love Mercedes, I do love the Hurt Syndicate. I am becoming a real big fan of Ricochet. Swerve is really good, Page is good. That's kind of where my AEW interest starts and ends. I love Willow, Chris, and all of them. But that was one of the best. Like, I spent my money and I watched that thing and I'm like, you know what? I'm glad I got this. This was a good show. Until the main event, that was a hell of a show. Like,
Right.
Tony, kudos to him. Him and his performers put on a great show. Back to her promo thing. There are three promos to me that stick out in her career. Number one is the interview she did with John Morrison on Talking Smack, that
Hmm.
when they used to do the show Saturday morning. And she picked up the microphone like this and she said, because I'm a star, you need me because I make you a star. Look at me. And John Morrison echoed, look, you do look like a star. I thought that was the best promo of her career. I thought she was straight to the point. I thought she cut deep. I know Bailey is her best friend. It probably was uncomfortable for her to say that because Bailey long has been criticized as the fourth wheel of the four horsewomen in terms of her drawing power and her aura and everything else. So I'm sure that hurt Mercedes to have to even go there. but that's what made it great because it had a tinge of truth to it. I mean, she took what everybody was saying about Bailey and had to kind of boomerang it back at her. That was to me my favorite promo of her career. Number two was the promo where she came out with she had the gold chains on her leather shorts. It was the night where her and Zelina and Mela became kind of a clique against Bianca, where um it was the week before that though, but she talked about how, Bianca's getting all this praise, but I'm the one who made her. I'm the one who I'm the reason the main event happened is because of me. And that's a true story. It wasn't
Yep.
because of Bianca, it was because of her going to the person who ran at the company at that time and said, hey, if you give us the main event, we can steal the show. Trust in me. And that person, who I don't want to give any credit for, did trust in her, and they did get it. Number three, Raw Talk with the Alexa Bliss one, the very
Oh yeah.
famous. You don't know Matt and Jeff Hardy, that one.
Yeah. Right.
I think where going against Bliss is tough because she's never, and I know I'm probably people are gonna be like, oh, I don't think she can ever win a talking battle with Alexa Bliss that doesn't have, like, it's just they're just two people talking. I don't know if she can win that because Bliss is really good at that. She's really good at that. But what Mercedes did at that point was like, okay, I'm gonna have to, like, she's been throwing jab after jab after jab at me. I'm gonna have to just be nasty and hit her below the belt. I thought that was a really good promo. So those are my three for her. But um, you go ahead.
No, it's interesting though. Is that's proof that the longer she's in AEW, the better that all is going to be. Because think about it, she came in, and especially if she's going to be a heel or tweener, she doesn't have a lot of material until she's been around a while. We said this on the podcast before. It's not like
Yeah.
she can tell Britt Baker, "Hey, okay, cool, you're the queen bee of the smallest pond," because then she's putting AEW down. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
a lot of her best material would have been "This place sucks,"
Hmm.
and one into free agency, she can't. She's got to be AEW before she could blur some of those lines, even if she ever even wanted to. But it wouldn't have worked. Um, the things that would have made for the best promo were off the table.
Like for example, my favorite CM Punk promo in AEW was when he was in there with Moxley, and they were talking about their match in Chicago, and he goes, John, you're not even the best John I've ever faced in Chicago.
Mhm.
But the thing is, she can't, like, to your point, she can't say that because there isn't an equivalent of John Moxley who came from WWE to AEW in the women's division before her. She's the John Moxley. She's the top tier WrestleMania main eventer on the women's side who jumped ship, right? Like, that promo could work if Becky was there before her and she showed up, and then they go at it where they can kind of dig at each other with their WWE. She doesn't have a WWE equal. Like, what is she gonna do? Yeah, Tony, you're a job woman in WWE. Like, you won a Mae Young tournament. Like,
She may
there,
do it with Tony because they have a relationship. But again, when that
yeah,
happens, she'll be a year and a half or 2 years in also. So it'll work better. But if she would have run down Tony last year, everyone in AEW would have been like, "See, we don't want her here."
like, she can't even say, I'm so good that opponents I fight the other. She can't say the other company sides, because then that would just, because look, I mean, we can have this conversation another episode, but AEW losing Stephanie Vacour looks like a really bad move at this point. It,
Gigantic.
it, it looks really bad. Like, looking at what Stephanie Vacour has become in a year, in less than a year, because I believe her match with Mercedes was May. And we're now, or maybe it was later, June. No, it was June. It was
June,
June.
yeah, the Willow match was May.
Yeah. So in less than a year, Stephanie Vacour has become one of the biggest women's stars in the world, and they've built a promotion around her. And she's the only women dual champion besides Becky Lynch ever. So they have attached jet fuel to her. And for Tony Khan to let her walk out of his grasp, like he had her, he could have signed her well before WWE even realized she was going to have a match with Mercedes. And for those out there who don't think the Mercedes match is why she got signed, you are only lying to yourself, because there are not two bigger fans of in-ring Mercedes than Triple H and Shawn Michaels. And you know that if they watch her match and they say, we can't get her back, but we can get the other person. And oh boy, we could do wonders with the other person. And oh, by the way, they have been looking for a Rey Mysterio replacement for how long? And I think
Yeah,
she's it. I
I
think
do too.
she's the Mysterio replacement.
She got a private jet 2, 3 days after the match, and she had tried out there before. There's no argument that the Mercedes match, the it's not the Mercedes, the way she acquitted herself against Mercedes. They know how good Mercedes is. They're like, it was a no-brainer for them at that point. And I wish Tony was smart enough to be as bold.
I think the difference though is Tony is a wrestling promoter, and HBK and Triple H are entertainment wrestling promoters. And there's a
Yeah.
difference. And look, we talk about the women in the ring and what they're capable of, and we have given flowers on this show to a lot of different women. Nia Jax, Willow, Bailey, the list goes on. We've given them to all of them. Alexa, everybody. Stephanie Vacour, she checks every single box. If you wanted to have a Latin woman superstar, she checks every box. She
Yep.
has everything. She has aura. She can wrestle. Her promos, even with the language barrier, are kind of like badass. Like she doesn't cut like these generic kind of language barrier promos. She cuts like this, oh, I'm still gonna beat the crap out of you. She has just this presence to her. And Triple H and HBK saw our next Rey Mysterio. They didn't just see we're going to sign one of the best women wrestlers in the world. We're going to sign a package. Like,
Yep.
everybody talks about Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair. I could make a case by this time next year we'll be talking about Stephanie Vacour as the third in that trio. Like, oh, we know Bianca and Rhea are the two, but Stephanie's number three because I don't see her train slowing down at all. I, in fact, think that she's become the bullet train. She went from Amtrak to the bullet train. She is on such a fast course, but Mercedes is the harbinger for her. And that's the impact of the year of Mercedes outside of WWE, which is she has been able to elevate the genre of women's wrestling to a new audience and elevate her opponents to be elevated on a different platform. Now, people are going to be like, well, Billy, Raj, what has Chris gotten out of losing to Mercedes twice? What has Willow gotten out of it? What has Momo got? Well, that's not Mercedes's fault that the promoter of this company doesn't capitalize on these great matches. Chris was on the sidelines for what? This was the hottest
Couple
thing they
weeks.
had. Right.
Yeah.
Harley, at least with Harley, they're doing something with her. Like
Right.
and Mercedes gave Harley the platform with the puppet, with the ventriloquist stuff I didn't even know she could do, the rapping. I was like, Harley's a star, and they better have Harley signed because if Harley's contract is coming up at some point, she's going to NXT too because and this is where Tony's really going to regret not signing Stephanie. It's not because he could have presented Stephanie the way HBK has. I don't think he's capable, but You know what's the problem now? Everybody's seen what Stephanie has become over there, and they're gonna be like, oh my goodness, they could do that with me.
You know what though? He did learn the lesson, and he's doing it with Megan Bay. He's
Okay.
he's he's presenting. She signed her,
Yeah.
and she's come in, and her booking, as far as her booking's been far, or in a way, stronger than even Mercedes coming in.
Yeah, in terms of the win-loss record, it's pretty much the same as Mercedes, but I get what you're saying. She's coming in as Goldberg. I
She's
mean,
coming
she's
in, yeah. Um she's wrecking people, not just in matches, right? So
yeah,
she's this force in the locker room, and um I'd like to think that some of this is a lesson learned with how he whiffed on Stephanie, because he's done a really good job with Megan Bain, and it feels a
he
little out of
has.
nowhere.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, Megan has everything, man. Megan is now I'm pretty biased here. I think Megan Bain's really good. I don't know if anybody he could sign could be Stephanie,
no,
to
no,
be
no, I
honest.
know.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm saying the way he's gone about.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
we
yeah.
signed her, and I mean the crowd would accept her destroying Tony in a month. The crowd
Yeah.
would not be like, "What the hell?" The crowd would be like, "Oh," it'd be a holy shit moment. But laid the foundation. I think we said it a couple weeks ago. I mean, it could be Mercedes or Tony that she could wipe out. We talked about like a Drago thing with Mercedes. It's just not the right story for her first loss. But
Uh, I know we kind of have to get to the WWE
yep.
stuff, but I would tell you this. I I have a new person now who should defeat Mercedes for the TBS title. Babyface Mariah May. I know Mariah May might be the best overall heel in wrestling. Forget about male or female. She might be that. She's that damn good. But I think people want to cheer Mariah May now. And I think they want to boo Mercedes even more. And I don't think there's a better opponent to boo Mercedes than Mariah May babyface. I think Mariah May babyface should beat Mercedes because for what she has given in that Tony Storm feud, I think she deserves like a big. I know she got the moment at All In and she won the title, but her title reign was largely forgettable. Like Mariah May's title reign was largely forgettable, except for Tony coming back into it. I would love to see a babyface Mariah May beat Mercedes for the TBS title. And then I would like to see, whether it's Tony beats Megan Bain back for the belt or Mercedes slowly morphs into a babyface or a tweener to fight Megan Bain. I'd like to see them spin there. Um, so that's kind of how I would do it. Before we get to WWE, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the crowd wants to cheer her. Is it a little bit of that Tiffany Stratton thing though, where I don't know if she can babyface promo. I'm not putting it past her. I'm just saying, would it disconnect with the crowd? Because
Yeah,
she's
that's a
so
good
good at what
point.
she does, and is that why she's liked? Um, no, I mean we can. I think Megan's going to be the one to beat Tony. Um, I still think it's got to be Athena, Willow, or Chris to beat Mercedes, and then I think you give Mercedes a month or two off, because at that point, whenever she loses all these belts, she'll have probably worked, um, you know, almost 2 years straight or 18 months straight. Um, and then if Megan, I think babyface Mercedes, I'm booking way in the future. I think the first person to beat Megan should be babyface Mercedes. She's the absolute best person as a babyface to beat that type of wrestler to put the best match on. But I don't want to sound like Mercedes should just beat everyone. Mercedes should beat Megan after she's lost several times, right?
Mm,
Losing all these other titles. She should be beltless when she beats Megan. In
yeah.
fact, I'd almost have her fight Megan and lose the first time. Um, and then beat her on a rematch and maybe a third. But um, I I see where you're going because Mariah deserves to kind of rule over a title reign. I just my pause is how does she connect with the crowd as a babyface since I haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, and that's fair, and it's a good segue. And let's get to WWE. I wanted to start with the phenomenal Monday night segment. But before we get to that segment, let's spend a little bit of time on Charlotte and Tiffany. I have, if you follow my account at King Ajar, I am very vocal about this particular feud. I am a Tiffany Stratton fan, but I will be the first to admit um, they have not put her in the best position to succeed in this feud with A, her opponent, and B, what they have asked her to do. But Friday night, I think we got somewhere in this feud. We got somewhere, which is the by the books WWE pull apart brawl,
Right.
which is the if the feud is not going well, let's do the all out pull apart brawl that spans over two segments and has some stunt work in it because it'll get the feud over, which in the live audience, it seemed like it worked because they were going bonkers for Tiffany. They were going bonkers for everything, to be honest, but they were going bonkers for her when she did the swanton bomb off the Tron onto everybody but Charlotte. And then I thought when she kicked Charlotte in the head twice, that was kind of a that was a little bit of a receipt. Like if you go back and watch that, she almost kicked her in the head, kind of like, yeah, stop trying to make this all about you here. And then she said, I'm the new queen now. So what did you think of that whole segment on Friday?
Yeah, I mean that was a pull apart that's usually reserved for the week before, 2 weeks before, and then or 2 weeks before. Then you do the no contact last before Mania. So they pulled it early, and when they pull it early, it's because to your point, things are not going as planned. The work wasn't as good as it needed to be for the TV viewer. I mean, certainly in the arena they didn't care, but don't take me out of my suspense of disbelief, right? And you know, both of them. I mean, she. You know what? She either missed Charlotte or Charlotte was too non-committal for contact, and I don't know enough to say, you know, but Charlotte certainly didn't lean into either one of them, and I don't see how they would have planned it on purpose where it's like, make sure you don't touch Charlotte at all. But
I'm going to defend Tiffany here
that's what I'm saying is
because
I think Charlotte wasn't
because
leaning in.
every other time I've seen Tiffany do these moves, she doesn't miss that badly. It
Well, the
only
girls have
start
dropped her a couple
Yeah,
times,
yeah,
but
they dropped her, but it's like she's dove onto them for them to catch her. This was so bad. And I mean that, like,
so
Tiffany
bad.
has one of the prettier swantons in all of wrestling. Like, it's picturesque. Her moonsault and her swanton, because she's a gymnast, so she knows how to do this. She dove onto nine men security guards, and it was like bowling. She knocked the pins right down. It was like one pin knocked everything else down. Charlotte was barely even on the screen.
Charlotte
And
was the 10 pin.
yeah, it was like, what are we doing here? And then that's why I thought the kick in the head was her receipt. Like I thought the kick in the head, the two kicks in the head were Tiffany saying, "Hey, get with the program here. Like you got to start to like give me something here."
Right.
Because I hate to use the word sabotage, but I have felt like this whole feud, Charlotte has been checked out. She has given very little effort because I feel like somebody has told her she's losing.
We have been savage with Charlotte the last 2 weeks or last week, and
Yeah,
anyone
but
listening can tell we feel the same. And you know what? And Charlotte and Mercedes, Sasha Banks goes back a long time. And I said last week, it actually offends my senses as a wrestling fan that we see something and then because the machine is, in charge, we get told, no, this is the best you're ever going to see. I rest my case again on her part of that was crap and it is sabotage and it's beneath who she's supposed to be. And frankly, the reason I'm okay on our positive podcast giving her the shit she deserves for it is because she is at the point in her career where it is her freaking job to make Tiffany
Yeah.
look good. It's her job. And
If
she's becoming
somebody
Hulk Hogan instead of Bret Hart.
if somebody told me in 2025 that Mercedes Monet would give more to Indy Hartwell on a House of Glory match in front of 1,000 people at most versus Charlotte giving more to Tiffany Stratton, who we're talking about Barcelona here, sold out 15,000 people, probably one of the record gates they're going to do in that city. Crowds going bonkers for Tiffany. This is your chance if you're Charlotte to say, "Oh my God, I can make some money with this woman. It's time for me to hitch my wagon to her because she can propel me in terms of drawing some money." Like if this feud was done right, you could make the argument this could be the women's main event match
It was
because
thrown out
of
there when it started.
who Tiffany is. They're trying to make Tiffany and what she is, how she's connected with the fans. Like Charlotte has been so bad in this feud, and she has been so checked out that it does disturb me because yes, there is a wrestling media microphone, megaphone, whatever the term is, echo chamber that tells you Charlotte is the greatest thing ever. But I gotta hear. I'm here to tell you. I've watched wrestling a long time. I've watched wrestling before Charlotte even thought about being a wrestler. I watched her dad. I never ever thought Charlotte Flair was a better in-ring wrestler than Mercedes ever. Not in 2015, 16. I thought 2017 she had the case for it only because Mercedes was basically on the sidelines. Like she was inactive. But
2018 is her best year, and
2018,
Mercedes didn't
2018,
even, yeah, and Mercedes didn't even
2018.
wrestle.
Right. 2018 is the year I'm talking about. My point is, I never, ever, ever even wondered where people would put the, because I think Mercedes needs to be compared to Minami Toyota or to Asuka or to Io or to, um, I guess you have to have Becky in there. Charlotte should be more compared Nikki Bella, Trish Stratus, Lita in terms of in-ring ability. I'm not talking about aura and booking and all that stuff, but just in the ring. I never saw Charlotte as an equal to Mercedes ever. In fact, I have always thought of in the ring, Charlotte was the worst of the four horsewomen. Now, yes, she can knock it out of the park with a Rhea Ripley when you give her 30 minutes and she has a motivating factor to go out there. But she checks out way too much for me to put her in the Mercedes class. So,
I
Charlotte, yeah,
no, I saw one of her. I think it was the handicap match in Nashville at Raw with Kyrie and was it Kyrie and Asuka that she did the
yeah.
handicap match with? And she was so bad. In the crowd, you're just like, this person does not care. And it was in that string of matches where Kyrie got, it's not the one where Kyrie got concussed,
No.
but it's in that era where Kyrie got concussed and she did not seem aware to it because she was. But watching her live that night, one of the worst performances I've seen from a wrestler where you're watching and you're like, this is not good.
I,
And below the craft. And how do you say the greatest of all time? And it wasn't a house show, not saying that that would be an excuse. It was a Monday Night Raw taping, and it was terrible. And also told on herself this week, by the way. TMZ asked her, "What are your three matches you're most proud of?" 2018, 2018. It is the year 2025, and even Charlotte doesn't like anything she's done since 2018.
Did she have the match with Rhea on there? No, the WrestleMania
No, she
match.
said Asuka, Becky, and Ronda Rousey at Survivor Series. Those were all 2018.
The Becky match is Evolution she's talking about.
Evolution, Mania, Survivor Series. Yeah.
See, and I would give her more credit than that. I think her Becky Survivor Series match is better. I think her match with Rhea is better than the Rousey
Yeah. Oh, I
match.
do too. I'm just
On
saying
the
the passion.
Oscar match, for her to pick that match, it tells me a lot about her because that was about her, right? Like that was Oscar's streak being broken, one of the all-time bad booking decisions of WWE. And again, Charlotte wrestling to me has become James Harden. Like that's what she is. Like
Yeah.
I used to have an almost hate of watching James Harden play basketball. It was dribble, 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 dribble for 21 seconds and either shoot a three or get fouled. Dribble, dribble, dribble. Like that's what it was. And Charlotte has become that. And look, I thought her clap back on X to Tiffany was really good. I thought Tiffany, I knew when Tiffany went to the looks, it would anger a lot of people because Charlotte, if you've read her book, which I've read actually multiple times, she talks about it in there that it's very like her looks have long been a sense of pain for her. She's always felt like she wasn't pretty enough. She's always felt like she wasn't glamorous enough. And she's talked about many teared, nights in a hotel crying. And so when Tiffany went there, I knew the Charlotte fan base would go, "Hey, that's off limits.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to talk about this with her because it's such a sensitive subject." And I thought for her clapback was good. And I agree. Once you start going to looks, it tells me you've lost the plot of the feud, right? Like
That's not,
now,
yeah, we're not, yeah, I agree.
and then look, Tiffany's over. I cannot take that away from her. But I got to be honest, like of the women's matches I think that are coming up on WrestleMania, I mean, Jade and Naomi have far surpassed this thing, right? Like that's how you use social media. Like the way
Right.
Jade and Naomi use it, that's how you use it. So, enough about the B side for WWE. Let's talk about the A side. So Monday Night Raw, we had a in-ring segment, which I have personally probably watched back 20 times, which
Hmm.
is so you had Michael Cole saying, "I'm going to interview the new women's champion, Io Sky, come on down." I also want to interview her challenger for WrestleMania, Bianca Belair. So Bianca comes out. And before they could even get started, this is my brutality hits. Crowd goes bonkers for Rhea. And Michael Cole quickly saw, this is not my place. I'm out of here. And he quickly goes under the ropes and left, and Rhea comes out. And as an EO fan, and I love all three of these women, but as an EO fan, I was like, oh no, please don't openly tell us that she's third wheel, that she's just happy to be here, but it's about these two. And the way that thing was going, they had me hooked because I was like, no, what are you guys doing to Io? You're making her look like such a loser. So Rhea and Bianca are getting each other's face. Io comes up, Rhea pie faces her. Get out of here, kid. Io's like, what? Great facials by Io. She runs up again, and Bianca takes the left hand and goes whoosh, throws her down. And Io, as I guess the kids say, crashed out. She went crazy. She goes, slaps Rhea, crowd pop. But man, when she set Bianca up and went whack, the crowd lost its mind and they kept chanting EO, EO. And she's like doing her tantrum in the ring, like, I'm the champ. You will respect me. Crowd went crazy for her. I thought you said this, so I'll borrow from you. That was the best EO babyface segment that didn't involve a match ever
Ever,
in
ever,
WWE. In WWE,
ever.
yes, for sure. She was phenomenal. Rhea and Bianca played the part great of we're gonna make it about us, but then we're gonna make it about Io. Like the way you walked away from that segment is Io not only belongs, but god damn it, she's the champ. And she has a winning record against both of these women, and you will take her seriously. I thought that was an A+ segment to already, they're coming off a hot weekend because you had the Jade Bianca Naomi segment, and then you had this segment. I'm like, WWE women are on fire. What did you think of that segment?
No, I loved it. The reason to root for Io Sky back to Io Shirai
Yeah.
in America at least has always been she's a badass and she wrestles. She's one of the best, two or three wrestlers in the world. That's always been the reason. I love that they've generally let her promo in Japanese. Sometimes when they've needed her to say something, and she'll say a line or two in English, and then say something. And it's because the way she talks and her facial expression is pulls you in, right? So she's never had to go in there and do a promo about who she is and what she cares about. You've always had to know who she is and how she aligns based on how she's acting, right, in the ring. Um, that was the first time that someone watching who's never seen them wrestle, like if that was the first segment you ever saw, never seen Io wrestle, you would come out of that segment wanting to see her beat those two women in a match because she was being disrespected. She stood up for herself, and she would look like the underdog if you don't know any better because she's so much smaller in stature than the other two women. So um, I was floored, and we shouldn't be surprised anymore. She beat Rhea 2 weeks ago. They obviously love her, and they're going to make sure, even if she loses the belt, that she is treated with respect. And it's exactly my type of booking because I can't say this enough. I'll say this every podcast if I have to. I don't watch wrestling for one of the acts involved to look like crap. When it's done well, everyone should come out looking better. That's literally the point. Um, if you're watching a sporting event that's not predetermined, you want to see a game where the game is close, or do you want to see someone get blown out? You don't watch the game if it's a blowout. Maybe if it's
No,
a
yeah.
championship game and it's your title, your team, but in a regular season game, you want to see a good game, right? And they get to choose to have a good game in wrestling, and they should choose it more often than not.
I'm starting to think that Bianca is going to win the title,
Mm-hmm.
and they're setting up Rhea Bianca next year, and Rhea's going to beat her. I think this is the Rhea redemption story starting. She can't beat Io. She's
Right.
lost everything. She loses at Mania. I think you're going to see Rhea going to kind of a dark place and come out of it. I'm starting to think that Bianca is going to be the heel by next WrestleMania versus Rhea.
I'm picking up on that too. People are seeing heelish behavior from Bianca. And I don't
And
think it
I,
means she's aligned with Naomi. I do think it means that she's setting the groundwork for that. Yep.
or it comes out that she knew Naomi did it, had nothing to do with it, but understands why Naomi did it and can respect it. Like Naomi made it about herself. And Bianca eventually is going to come out and say, it was about me. And in my best interest, I look at Naomi as I want that person on my team because she's ruthless. But I'm starting to see Rhea Bianca next year WrestleMania. And I think they're gonna give us what we wanted. I still could make a case that the triple threat on Io Rhea Bianca should main event this year because it's as hot as anything they have, except I was all in on it, and then I saw the OTC come back Monday night, and I was like, "Uh-oh, wait a minute."
Yeah.
Because that crowd, I mean, if I'm not saying it's clearly the Cody Rhodes is the guy who's driving the bus for the WWE now. But Roman Reigns returned, and CM Punk and Seth Rollins are two of the most beloved wrestlers, and in one of the most beloved wrestling markets in Madison. Roman Reigns is the most over person on that show. He
Yep.
was by far the most. So now, but it should a triple threat men's match that has no stakes main event? I don't think so. I think if anything, the women being for the titles should give it the edge. But my point is, if Bianca and Rhea aren't going to main event next year because they already know it's going to be Rock Reigns and it's going to be what? It can't be Cody Cena. What could it be next year? I guess maybe next year it is Rock. Maybe it could be Rock Reigns, or is it Cody Reigns next year or Cody Rock? Sorry, I don't know. But what I'm saying is if Rhea and Bianca are already etched into cement to main event next year, I still think the women should main event this year. Like, why do they have to only main event 1 year? Why can't they get both years? Like, if it's as hot,
Yeah.
if what Triple H says is true, it should be. But my point is that the way they have booked the two, and I'm sorry, Jade and Naomi to me is a bigger feud than Tiffany Charlotte. Like, I'm sorry, but Jade's promo on SmackDown. Let's talk about that. Did you see that was phenomenal?
It was
The
phenomenal.
the
Yep.
the
And
sit down interview was great. The empty arena, and what was the symbolism? She's by herself. Jade is by herself. She has no friends anymore. She clearly doesn't trust Bianca,
right.
and she obviously can't trust Naomi. She's kind of a lone wolf. And boy, was Liv Morgan an A+ heel in that segment.
They've
Comes
done such
up,
a good Liv has been all aces since she lost the belt. It's almost like
great.
it freed her, you know?
Liv has been
Um
phenomenal.
and I I don't say that to pick on her championship run. That was not her fault, but been on a phenomenal run, and she is a central character. I mean,
Yes.
she's a little bit of every one of these stories, and I think that that's phenomenal. Someone did raise the point that the women's tag titles have not been defended on Mania the last 2 years, and um,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have to be this year. They
I mean
haven't really lined up what that's going to look like yet, though.
the last person to I think, well, defending them, I think was it who was it Rhea Ripley?
Um, Sasha and Naomi won them at 38. This year's what,
And
40?
41. Did they
So
beat who did they beat for those titles? Was it Rhea Ripley and no, Carmella and
it was a four-way match. I think
yeah.
Rhea and Liv might have been in it, right?
Oh, I mean, to think Rhea Ripley was in a women's multi-person tag match, boy, things have really I mean, even Liv Morgan for that matter, but Liv Morgan, that's another person that doesn't get enough credit. I mean, she is now. She's been fantastic. From the match with Io to present, she's been on her A game. She has been a flawless heel. She comes out there and she says, "Yeah, I'll fight you next week. Just make sure you don't get thrown onto any cars between now and then." I laughed so hard. I was like, "Oh my goodness." Um, and what's crazy is Liv is right. Like Liv is like, you guys all owe me apologies because you've been blaming me for something I had nothing to do with.
She
So
is justified heels sometimes are the best
yeah,
characters.
so next week it's her versus Jade, and I think we get the return of Naomi. I think Jade's getting her ass kicked next week. I think we're gonna see Naomi. lay waste to Jade to set up their Mania match because there's no way they're going to let Liv take the pin. And I don't
Right.
think they're going to let Jade's not going to lose. So to me, I think Naomi has to come out and interfere in this match. But the stuff that Jade and Naomi are doing on social media, if you guys out there haven't followed it, those are both must Twitter follows right now because
Yeah.
they are laying waste to each other. Um, so WWE, absolutely on fire with the women's division. But before we get to NXT, I know this is you're a big fan of this woman. And this past week, her booking was the central point of Monday Night Raw on Twitter, which is Bailey. So a year ago, Bailey was in the co-main event of night two with Io, was as hot as any WWE character last year, besides Reigns, Cody, and Rock. Now she's losing to Raquel on a Raw to become number one contender for an IC title. What are your thoughts on Bailey's year booking?
Yeah, I almost want to reserve that one for next week, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Bailey's fans, and I'll include myself in that. Chrissy, who's been on the show, she's good at reining everyone back in. Bailey has been disrespected in her booking enough that her fans do the sky is falling thing pretty quickly. Um, and I'm not gonna lie, I think why you brought it up is I texted you and I'm like, what the hell? What are they doing with Bailey? Um, I will rant and rave on here if they don't give her something meaningful for Mania. I don't know if that means she gets involved in the tag thing. I don't know if that means her and Roxanne. She could the tag thing would make the most sense because what you're bringing up is she just lost to Raquel Rodriguez. And it wasn't clean. There was interference and all that stuff, but doesn't feel good about being on the Mania card to be, several weeks out of Mania, losing an IC contender match. It's not the momentum her fans wanted her to get going over to Raw. And it's getting the hours getting late for her to get on the Mania card in a meaningful way.
6 weeks ago, we were on this show worried about Io Sky on the Mania card.
Yep.
My goodness, how the tables have turned, right? Like
Yep.
we went from worrying about Io. If a year ago somebody had told you the loser of the women's title match would end up being in possibly the main event of the next year WrestleMania, you would have said it's Becky Lynch.
Yep.
You wouldn't have said it was Io Sky, right?
Yep.
So let's wrap here. I know we're on a little bit of a time crunch. Quick thoughts before we get out of here. NXT title for title, sold out Madison Square Garden Theater. The Beautiful Madness, Julia versus the Dark Angel, Stephanie McCourt. Effectively, what I'd like to say is they were fighting for an audience of one in me. But nonetheless, what did you think of the match? We knew who the winner was going to be. That was not a shock. What did you think of the match, though?
The match was great. I'll actually say something that I was going to say at the end because we'll finish this up and wrap up. But we got so spoiled in women's wrestling this week. I mean, Tony versus Mariah was an
Yeah,
incredibly brutal, just hell of an end to that feud. We talked about Mercedes
amazing.
Momo. This Julia Stephanie match was besides the picture in picture, which really makes me mad, and I wish you could just skip that when you have a title match at the end. But really, really good TV title match, similar to Io and Rhea the week before. In that, a title change on TV is always exciting and welcome. It wasn't the surprise that one was, but the match was probably better beginning to end than that one was, right? So, um, really, really well worked. I was happy to see that Julia, even if she's injured, she's not so injured that they couldn't do like a regular match. Um, insane spot
Mm.
where Stephanie does a corkscrew and Julia, and someone showed a clip of her doing this in Japan, so this is something that she's just great at, I guess. But she freaking catches her in mid corkscrew, and she
Yeah.
catches her in the triangle with the arm locked with almost no additional movement. It's as smooth of a wrestling spot as you'll ever see, and the match would be memorable if nothing else good happened just for that. It was such a good spot.
It
Um,
was a great spot. And honestly, I love both of these women. I've not hidden behind that. And so this was, I feel bad for Julia because I think as she was finally getting her sea legs as champ, she gets the injury. She's going to be out. They got to make the title change. I would argue though that it tells me a lot about their feelings about all the other women on the roster not named Roxanne. Because if you had confidence in other women, wouldn't you make one of them just beat Julia and keep have two separate titles? So for them to give it to Stephanie, I know Stephanie is the face of that promotion. That's fine. She's been that way since the moment she walked in the door, her and Julia. But to have Stephanie as the dual champion, that's great. And I'm a huge Stephanie fan. So now the story has to be we get the beautiful madness. And I don't think American fans are ready. Because if you think Mariah May was a heel, you ain't seen nothing yet when you get heel Julia. Because heel Julia is one of the all-time great women's heels in the history of wrestling. So if they allow her to be that version of Julia, her and Stephanie by next year's Mania is going to cook. That is
yeah.
going to be an all-timer feud. So yeah, congratulations to the Dark Angel, Stephanie Bakur, who um I don't know what else to say. I mean, she to me is the face of NXT, and I think she is going to be the face. She's going to be their Latin American superstar. Like she's going to be the female Rey Mysterio. And so I think they found a superstar in her. I think Julia will be back as a heel, and I think it'll be great theater. I'm interested to see what they do with Stephanie next. You know, who's her next opponent? Is it Grace? Is it Jada? Is it Lola?
Yeah, I would like to see her. It'll be interesting to see how they get the North American title off of her if they book her back to back matches or something like that. But then it's harder to get the low belt off someone because the low match, the lower belt usually happens first on the card, so you can't even use being tired as the excuse. But it'll be interesting. It doesn't seem like they're going to do a vacate situation. Um,
No,
but no, it was a everything on women, everything in women's wrestling delivered this week in spades.
it was great week. Great week.
AEW's got more stories going with women than they've had in quite a long time. Um, not perfect by any means, but you got Billy Mercedes, they got Megan Bain running roughshod over everyone. Tony, back at her peak. Harley's still on TV. The WWE has heated up the most of their best women to this boiling point. Um, that has me very excited for Mania. Charlotte and Tiffany got a lot of work to do. We got some work to
Mm.
do to get Bailey and Roxanne on the card. I almost wonder if they, do they fight one more time and then kind of shake
Become a
hands and
team.
try to go beat Liv and Raquel. And it's not just about Bailey and Roxanne. I don't know. They do multi women matches for tag matches a lot, but usually there's at least one rivalry occurring within that, and they don't have anything built on the tag front right now. So
Yeah, and honestly, WWE, the one thing they need to improve on is those two women's mid card titles.
yeah,
Lyra has no path for WrestleMania. We didn't even talk about the phenomenal work of Chelsea Green and the Secret Hervis with Alba Fire now and Piper Niven. They were phenomenal.
yep.
It feels like Mania is going to be Zelina Vega against Chelsea. Like
You think it'll
that's
make the Mania card?
I don't know if it'll make it, but
Mania
it feel
weekend, yeah,
maybe it's the SmackDown before Mania.
Yeah.
I think Zelina clearly is primed for that title. And I think Michin and BFAB will help her. And then on the Lyra side, I mean, I I don't see Lyra getting on the card unless Becky Lynch makes a phone call and says, "Yeah, I'll come back for that match." Then
Yeah.
she'll get on the card. Last thing, tag thing. My prediction is Nia, Candice, Wyatt Six, Alexa, Nikki Cross, Bailey, Roxanne versus Liv and Raquel. And
Kind of a
that to
get
me is
everyone on the card match.
yeah. Yeah, and that match could still be good if they give them a little bit of time, but they never give those tag matches more than 10 minutes. But yeah, great week of women's wrestling. Congratulations for those people who care about that stuff to Tony Storm and Mariah May for the first ever women's 5-star in match in North America. There have been 20 women's matches that should have got 5 stars before that, but
Yep.
okay, congratulations. Those two women deserved it. It was great. Mercedes was great this week. Io, Bianca, Rhea, phenomenal. Jade, Naomi, phenomenal. Tiffany and Charlotte, you guys got some work to do, but step in the right direction. So with that, let's just wrap it up this week. We will see you all back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.